On May 6, 1954, Roger Bannister of Great Britain became the first man to run the mile under 4 minutes. 5 weeks later, John Landy became the second man, breaking Bannister's world record by 1 6/10 seconds. The stage is now set for the Empire Games in Vancouver, a mile race that would include the only two men in history to break the 4-minute mile barrier, Roger Bannister of Great Britain and John Landy of Australia.
That was a very tough race. Certainly had an advantage in that I set the pace, but I don't think I would have had the confidence really to run in much other manner. It was a very hard race, though, because I intended to do one thing, and I think I did it reasonably well. I was going to run him off his feet, at least creating the illusion that I wasn't going to come back to him and setting very, very fast lap times. And I did go through the 1,500 metres in world record time, and I still had 120 yards to go, and I can tell you that's the hardest 120 yards I've ever had. I was inclined to think I'd shaken Bannister off. And I looked back over my left shoulder. To my amazement, he wasn't there, so I looked a bit further, and when I looked up the other side, he was going past. Roger Bannister won that race because he was the stronger runner in the race, but it wasn't a case of the man who sprinted home, it was a case of the man who slowed down last, and that was Roger Bannister.
It is Saturday, December 1st, 1956, the final of the 1,500-meter run. John Landy has barely qualified for the final by coming in third in his heat. Landy has been plagued with injuries in the weeks preceding the games. Nevertheless, many predict that he will become the first Australian to win the Olympic 1,500-meter run since Edwin Flack won the event at the revival of the first Olympic Games in Athens 60 years before.
I would say that I probably had more publicity than most people in the race, but I think that people that were in the know would have thought that I had perhaps no more chance than several others in the race, but I must have started as one of the people with a good chance. But during the race itself, I elected to follow the pace. I had thought of leading early, but the pace was reasonably hard, and I thought I'd play it as it went.
With 500 meters to go, Landy is next to last on the inside. Normally in the lead at this stage, the position is unfamiliar to him. Landy starts his move and passes runners on the outside.
I moved once with about perhaps a little over a quarter of a mile to go. Then I pulled back thinking there must be something wrong. I feel too good. I did so, I guess, because of a lack of confidence.
Brian Hewson of Great Britain breaks loose from the pack the precise moment Landy stops his surge to the front. With 300 meters to go, it is Hewson, Great Britain first, Richtenhein, Germany second, Boyd, Great Britain third, Landy fourth. On the outside, Ron Delaney of Ireland is passing runners and going after the leaders. As they come off the final turn, Delaney catches Hewson. Richtenhein is in third place, and Boyd, Great Britain fourth. But now John Landy makes one final bid. Ron Delaney, Ireland first. Klaus Richtenhein, Germany second. John Landy, Australia third.
I must admit I was rather pleased to have got third. I guess if it had been 6 months or a year earlier, I would have been bitterly disappointed. But on the day, I believe I ran as well as I could. I've not the faintest doubt that Delaney would have won that race, whatever tactic I had adopted. I don't think I was good enough on the day. Whether I could have come second would have been a matter of finding an extra inch. I wouldn't care to debate that. That's possible. I wouldn't have beaten Delaney. It was too good.
The Irish national anthem is played for the only time at the Melbourne Olympic Games. After the race, Ron Delaney said, "I could not have won without the help of John Landy. I owe everything to him. He taught me to make the full use of my capabilities." Perhaps the words of Ron Delaney should be the epitaph to John Landy's career, for they best describe John Landy, the human being. But if visual proof is needed to confirm the athletic ability and personal character of this very special man, perhaps it was that day 8 months before the Melbourne Olympic Games when John Landy and Ron Clark ran in the Australian National Championships. For those who were there will remember it as one of those privileged times that will not come their way again. With 2 laps to go in the race, Ron Clark is in first place, followed by John Landy. As they round a turn, Clark trips and falls to the track. Landy stops running and goes to the aid of his teammate as the other runners in the race continue on. When Clark confirms that he is uninjured, Landy starts after the leaders, who are now 60 yards in front. With 200 yards to go, Landy has made up half the distance he lost. As they come into the last turn, Landy makes a final move. With 125 yards to go, Landy takes the lead. John Landy wins the 1956 Australian Mile Championship by 30 yards. So John Landy's career at age 26 is over, with his 3rd place finish at the Melbourne Olympic Games. He was one of the great mile runners of all time, yet he is remembered for the races he did not win. His race to become the first man to run the 4-minute mile, his race with Roger Bannister in Vancouver, and his race at the Melbourne Olympic Games. But it was his teammate Ron Clark who best summed up John Landy the runner and John Landy the man.
John was A, very modest about his abilities. 2, didn't like to push himself to the forefront. 3, was a very, very good runner who never made excuses.